Everybody, my name is Christopher Bullard, and a couple years ago I was in Cambodia, and our mode of transportation was to get around in these little motorcycles that had a carriage on the back of them. And from there, we would go about 3 to 4 miles or so at about 30 miles per hour. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but the culture shock I was dealing with was the fact that normally my mode of transportation was a 5-star safe vehicle, that was inspected by tons of engineers, and a lot of liability lawsuits that could be put in place if I was to ever get hurt. So this scared every ounce of being in me to be inside this vehicle. And then not only that, but the speed we were going and also how the transportation was for the whole area was nothing that I was used to. Then to top it all off, I had to do this to get to where I needed to go work at. So going back and forth was not my idea of a vacation in any formal way. And so this actually is going to bring us into the challenges that we're going to overcome when working overseas. Some things I want to talk about is, the paperwork that you're probably going to have to deal with, your transportation issues, communication, and then the most important thing that I have to go over is culture shock. Working overseas is easy. I will tell you that. I've gone to a bunch of different areas. I've worked for a bunch of different companies, and my experience is that that's not the challenge. It's surviving outside of America. That is the challenge, all right? So let's start with the first part. All right, paperwork. So your boss says, hey, I need you to be in the Netherlands in 1 week. Well, that's no problem besides the fact that it takes you about a month to finish out your apostille paperwork. And what's apostille paperwork? Pretty much it's a way to approve you, to authenticate your paperwork saying you're good to go. Now why is that big of a deal, Why do they need all of this? It's just how the world works. It's not America anymore. Other things is, passports, background checks, certificate approvals, and your dates have to match. So overall, let's get into what does this actually mean to you, all right? The thing, you have to put a lot of planning beforehand on what you need to do. And a month planning out could actually cost a company millions of dollars depending on what you work in or where you work for. So it's really good to be on top of that paper as much as possible and never make any mistakes. That way you're covered. Also, some other countries, they want to see certificates that I don't even know why they matter. You might need to give them a marriage certificate, your birth certificate, your child and wife's birth certificate. Why is this important? They're just verifying you for who you are because you are not a citizen of their country. Just like whenever we have other people from other countries come to our country, we have a lot of requirements in place for them also. Paperwork is a challenge, and before you even leave the door, guaranteed to be stressed out before you even start work overseas. Let's go into some other challenges. Transportation. Now, this goes back to our story we were talking about. Those were tuk-tuks, the motorcycles with the carriage on the back. Let's start with some other things. First off, kilometers per hour, miles per hour. Very different. Whenever you see your taxi cab drivers going about 140 to 150 kilometers per hour, don't freak out so much. It's almost 100 miles per hour. Not that big of a deal. It's just how they drive over there. So things to consider is that the laws are going to be different. Things aren't going to be the same over there, and it's nothing. It's more of, you've heard the term "when in Rome, be like Romans." Well, same thing. All right, you're trying to figure out your way to survive. Now, that's not so hard if you're using public transportation, but if it's your own private vehicle, those are other things you need to think about. Insurance. Will your insurance cover you using a rented vehicle in another country whose driving laws you don't understand? Now it goes back to you too. What driving laws do you or do you not understand? A U-turn in Korea involves multiple vehicles U-turning at the exact same time, and the first time you ever see this, it will scare you. I promise you this. But as long as you educate yourself on it, you're going to be fine. You're going to drive fine over there. And then, worst case scenario, let's just say an accident happens. Ignorance of the law. It's going to be a place. There are things you're not going to understand. If a police officer has to search your vehicle, you have rights. You have things that you can bring up. But if it happens the other way around, what rights can you bring up? What things can you mention? Things to research before you head on over there. Now, communication. Alright, so there's two parts to this. How well you can speak the local language, and where and how to get aid. Those are things you got to think about. It's more of how are you going to get to work? How are you going to get those directions? One of my favorite terms I've learned day one whenever I was in Korea was Rich Carlton Kachuseo. That's pretty much saying, hey, get me back to my hotel, please, as nicely as possible. And whenever you don't know the language and you're dealing with people who vaguely understand the concept of English, knowing a little bit of the local language will save you a lot of time and money. Also, what about in that emergency that we were talking about earlier about if you happen to get in an accident? Let's just say you get sick. How can you talk to people around them? These are the challenges you have to come across, because whenever you're working in another country for more than a few months, this is what you're going to have to come over. Other part. This is my favorite part right here. Culture shock. Whenever I was, my most recent trip was whenever I was in Korea, and something that I had to get used to was that I was working with two Chinamen, and one wanted to massage my shoulders. And then another time he kind of like grabbed my sides in like a ticklish manner. Now, everybody I'm talking to is American, or I've lived in America for a while, and that falls on some certain lines of harassment and just, very not how our culture rolls at all. This is not how we do business. But on the same side, this is how they did business, and they didn't see it as, they saw it as being friendly. In other countries, in the Middle East especially, two men will hold hands wherever they go. So these are things that you have to get comfortable with. Then also, what do they do for fun? How do you hang out with your colleagues after work? Some countries, what they might choose to do for fun, you might think is very immoral. Just like some colleagues that we have come here to the States to work, they think our strip clubs are really neat. You have to know where your moral compass is and what you feel is okay. One of the countries I was working in, I don't want to disclose the country, but one of the things they did for fun is they would some of the cattle in some of the fields would get really old and sick, get a little bit of disease, and it was best to get rid of them as quickly and as best as possible. And so they felt to do it with an RPG was the best route. So for a small fee, you had the opportunity to shoot an RPG at a cow. Now, yes, that baby cows, no, you don't shoot baby cows. But poor diseased animals that want to die, that's considered fun in other countries. All right, so you just have to know what level of culture shock are you ready for, and what things are you going to be prepared for. I really enjoyed this, and I hope that you kind of have an idea of some of the challenges that you're going to have to face whenever you go over there, some of the things that you're going to have to deal with. It's not just working. It's surviving over there. It's living over there. Sometimes you might go to work there for a weekend. Sometimes you might go to work there for a month, 2 months, a year. These are the things that you have to be prepared for. Because if you're not prepared for it, it will be a lonely adventure, because you will not know how to associate with those people around you. The gestures they use, the things that they do, what they do for fun is not what you're accustomed to. It's not what you know how to work with. Do your research and you're going to be set. Thank you. Enjoyed our time. Bye.